Hello, everyone. Good evening. How are you all doing tonight? Um, Hope you're all well. It's a bit colder outside today. I can definitely feel winter creeping in. Um, how are we all doing? It's Friday night. It's Wild Night. So welcome once again to my lovely nightlit studio. Where this week we're talking about creativity, authenticity, and vulnerability. So, yes, if you joined me last week, it was a bit more of an introduction talking about me, myself, my journey, and how I've gone from all of the different artistic endeavors that I create, and sort of focusing on perhaps just one or two, to fully embracing my multi passionate creativity. You probably know me as a musician, or perhaps from the pagan community, or as a fire performer, maybe even as an artist or as an author. Um, One of the many things that I do. But for me, it was very important that I didn't cut off any of these avenues, that I continue to express myself artistically in any way that I feel sort of serves my purpose, if you like. And that's kind of where I'm going to start with this week. That artists, as the creatures that artists and creatives are, artistic expression is as much a part of our personality and part of our identity as the art that we actually create. So I often find that artists have a very unique view of the world, of quite objective view, in that we feel that often we are on the outside looking in, or perhaps more accurately, that our view of the world is our interpretation, our artistic interpretation, if you like, of the world. Is a little more metaphorical or a little more symbolic, perhaps, than those who sort of don't express themselves artistically, or have other means of negotiating the world and choosing how to navigate their way through it. But the thing that I find really interesting about artists is we have an opportunity to speak our truth, to convey a message that perhaps exists on on several levels. I've just realised. Can you hear me? I think I possibly had my microphone on mute. Oh dear. I'm hoping that it wasn't. I've just checked a box. We'll carry on. Um, but yes, we're talking about artistic expression, and um, how artists have quite a unique perspective on the world, perhaps objectively, I'll be looking from the outside, looking in, that we perhaps have a more of um, a metaphorical or symbolic view of the world around us. So if you are just tuning in, please let me know in the comments. I think I've managed to navigate the some of the tech today. So if you are there and you can see and can hear, please just put a hands up or drop something into the comments, so that I know that you're there and I know that you can hear me. I did test a little bit. Hey Gig, thank you, that's great, you can hear, that's brilliant. Yes, I've managed to navigate the technology, and hopefully I'm streaming to both YouTube and to Facebook at the same time. Although I can only stream to one of my Facebook profiles. I've tried sharing to others, but it appears that Facebook is getting sneakier and sneakier, and is kind of controlling just how much that you can share. So if you happen to see it pop up, either give it a share on your own stream, create a watch party. Let's join the conversation. So this week we're talking creativity, authenticity, and vulnerability. And I just began then by talking about artists and the unique way in which we see the world. I often find that creative people do have that slightly more objective viewpoint. We do feel slightly apart from the masses oftentimes. I mean, not in every situation, obviously. Artists are very sociable people. We love to collaborate. We love to co-create. We love to be with other artists and be with like-minded people. And I think even more so because the majority of sort of everyday people who we might encounter, we don't necessarily have a lot in common with them. And if we want to discuss an artistic idea or an artistic concept, perhaps on a deeper level, perhaps even a spiritual level, or definitely on more social level or cultural levels, and how these things affect culture and society, they're not always welcome. They're seen as too deep a conversation, and people are more interested in small talk or just general socialization. But I think it's an interesting thing. Are you an artist? Are you out there? Give me a hands up in the comments now that I can actually see the comments. And I should be able to see them on both YouTube and Facebook. So wherever you're watching, just give me a hands up and say hello. Let me know that you're there. And let's get this conversation going. Are you an artist? Do you feel slightly removed, or perhaps a little on the outside or on the fringes of general sort of mundane rat race life? I know I do, and I've always had this sort of shadow hanging over me, this sort of this story I've carried with me. I don't know where this story came from. It was obviously something that formed when I was quite young, but this story that I'm weird, that I'm odd, that I'm not normal, that there's, and to some in the extreme, that there's something wrong with me. None of these things are true, of course, but they get formed when we're very young, when we express our ideas differently, and others don't share those ideas, or they don't want to engage in the conversation. Perhaps it's scary or too much to think about. It's, frightening if they open up the world. Especially kids, sometimes maybe they're not as developed as much as you are, or that your brain doesn't kind of work in the same way. Every human is unique and different, so there's nothing wrong or different about that. It's just finding the people who you can connect with. And when you are young, if you don't find those connections quite early on, it can lead to a bit of isolation, and that's never fun. So one thing that I do find really exciting about artists, and this has happened throughout history, is that artists have a way of speaking the truth, of kind of uncovering or revealing a sort of hidden meaning, or revealing the truth in a way that perhaps someone who is a lecturer or a historian, or someone who is much more has a kind of dry academic approach, can't necessarily do. Like, even from something as simple as a political cartoon in a newspaper, just a simple line drawing sketch with a quote underneath can convey a complete idea, a complete ideology around a public persona, a political party, a social concept. And just something so small as that can have that much impact. And then we look at other things, literature and poetry, for example. And the way that we read it may be a completely fictional story, but the themes and the messages and the lesson that it teaches us is something that's very applicable to our everyday lives in society, makes us view the world in another way. And this is something that artists have very, very, like very special kind of quality. That's the artist's magic, is that we have this ability to kind of peer through the veil and sort of translate as a medium, if you like, the medium of art, that we can translate these concepts and ideologies into something that is tangible, whether that's through an image, a painting, a piece of art, a bit of visual art, as I said, literature, or in my case, more often in song form. There's nothing I love more than to tell a story. This time last year, it popped up in my memories, this time last year, I was filming the music video for Dirty River, and again, that's a story that happens on two levels, and how I came round to that story was through a personal experience. I went through grief. I lost a really close friend, and I had all of the stages of grief. I had anger and guilt and bargaining and all of those things that we hear about. And eventually, when I had acceptance, I realised out of it that I'd been pointing my finger at the wrong person, and the story became an apology to the River Thames for dissing her. You know, she's a goddess. And me and my spiritual outlook, the way that I view the natural world and have reverence for it, that prompted me to say, well, hang on, let's have a look at this a bit deeper. Let's say, well, at one point, there were no people. There was just the land and this river. And this river that was very, life-giving, and that's why people settled. And because it was such a strong and powerful, pure river, and such a source of life and wealth, more and more people came, and commerce built up around it, until we have now the city of London, which dwarfs the river almost. Well, actually, you say that, but then you see the famous map that they use on the front of the soaps. It's still quite a dominant, you look at that, there's a very definite shape to the River Thames. But she ain't blue anymore. She's dirty. Even then it was quite a fast-flowing river, and Thamesis, which is the Roman name, actually means dark flow. So even then it was quite a deep, dark and fast river. So here is this story where, instead of looking at civilization and man and pointing a finger at health and safety, I went back and looked at the river and how she had been cheated, and told the story from a different perspective. Okay, so that's again a lived experience, something that I had, but I chose to speak my truth. I chose to look at it from a different angle, from a different perspective, and tell another story, because there are always more than one angle on these things. And so part of this journey that I'm on now, which is doing these lives, speaking to you, trying to poke a bit of conversation out of people, get people thinking, get people talking to one another, and it's time for me to kind of start speaking my truth about these issues, these things that are important to me, the principles that I hold, and find the others out there that are like me. Because I can't be the only one, surely. It may be a flask, but it is just water. What are you drinking this evening? Yeah, I found that, I was like, there'd be nothing greater than to sit down with my tankard full of mead. But I tell you something, 20 minutes in, you wouldn't be able to understand a word I was saying. So I'm sticking with the water for now. I've just had a really nice hot cup of tea, so hopefully the older voice box will last out. So, yes, my message. I didn't even know where to start. I didn't even know who I am, and I didn't even know why I did the things that I did. And then I started working with a coach called Ali Mapletoft. She is fantastic and has her own wonderful community of creative women, which I've been very privileged to be part of over this last 6 months and going forward. And through that, through the community there and the sessions that I've been privy to, I began to unravel some of this. And she, a quote that she said stuck with me. There is nothing the patriarchy fears more than a shape-shifting woman. And I love the idea of that. Yes, a shape-shifting woman. Oh, Gig's got a glass of wine. Well done, Gig. Good for you. It's Friday night after all. But yes, there is nothing the patriarchy fears more than a shape-shifting woman. And as I go through these, every Friday night when I turn up and I sit down and we have these conversations, at some point, very definitely we'll be exploring some of the more feminist concepts or feminist conversations about truly what feminism is, which is not man-hating, all men must die. No, I'm not. That's not that's not what feminism is. Feminism is wanting everyone to have the same. And that doesn't always mean equality. What it means is equity. It means readdressing the balance. And that goes for other inequalities that we see in our society too. I'm very much a progressive thinker, very much have progressive politics. I have progressive thoughts and actions, and my art, I like to be able to express those ideals through my art. So I began this journey of looking through my message and was like, what is it that I'm trying to say with the things that I do? Now, don't get me wrong, what I do, I enjoy what I do. I really, really do enjoy what I do, and I wouldn't want to do anything else. And it's my intent to make this my living and this be what I do. But I have to do more than just standing up on stage every now and again and playing my guitar. Yes, that's a lot of fun, but for me, I have to do more than that. I have to, start these conversations and just be out in the world a little bit more. Be a little bit more authentic. Start celebrating who I am more. And don't get me wrong, it takes time and it takes work and courage to come onto a public platform like this and tell the world your personal opinions. We live in quite a critical and judgmental world at the moment, a fishbowl, if you like. Everybody's peering in at each other's lives. Now, sometimes let's take Instagram, for example. There are plenty of sort of perfect looking, from the outside, perfect looking lifestyles and all of these things because they're picture perfect. Which is a form of artistry, I may add. But, what truth is that telling, And we can then look at the media, the fishbowl of the media. What truths are they telling? Not just in terms of the passage of information, but I'm more kind of interested in media concepts in terms of body image, in terms of beauty standards, in terms of sexism, misogyny, women's issues, race issues, LGBTQIA rights, definitely, as a queer woman myself. So all of these things there's a conversation to be had, and people are very often very quick to jump on something when they don't have all the information, or very quick to jump on something when something challenges their beliefs. Now, of course, people, our natural state of being as the human animal is to keep ourselves safe. And if something comes up that makes us not feel safe, the body goes into, it starts to have a physical effect. It starts to become afraid. Now, whether we feel it as fear or whether we feel it as anger, as a defense or an offense, that's down to the individual person. But what is happening on a kind of biochemical level, and we're now looking into sort of kind of human cultural, sociocultural issues, like anthropologic kind of concepts here about the human animal. But we defend our tribe, and we try and keep those who would steal our resources away. And that now happens on the on a conversational, on the debate platform, rather than on the physical, are you going to steal our crops, take our land kind of level. But the instinct is still there. Our little lizard brain still says, no, I don't understand this concept. This is different from what I know, and I'm afraid. And the amount of conversations I've had with people where you bring up something which is perfectly reasonable and kind of the way, comment on society, how the world is evolving, and immediately they, oh, no, and they jump on it, and you're like, well, hang on, I haven't even finished what I was saying to begin with. And actually, when you break it down and have that conversation, they go, oh yeah, I see what you mean. Yes, no, that's fine. Yeah, of course I agree with that. But getting past that initial reaction is sometimes very difficult, and you do sort of need to, if you're somebody like me who has to call it out when they see it, because I've got to an age now where I'm not going to put up with any bullshit anymore. And if I see somebody being a bit of a knob, I'm going to say so, because I don't have anything to lose from that. I'm not intimidated by it, and I can handle myself in a conversation. However, not everybody is in a position to do that. It's not always safe to question the status quo. It's not always appropriate. As in terms, you may be in a workspace, there may be a different way of handling it. You can't just blurt it out. There's lots of different reasons why those choose not to, and usually it's again down to personal safety, which does make us question why isn't it safe. But I think that's probably a conversation for another time. What we're talking now about is authenticity, is being able to speak your truth in a safe place. Not necessarily without consequences, but not necessarily without fear of, violence against your person, and also an opportunity to debate these concepts, and to see whether there's actually room for compromise, because more often than not there is. And I've got to this point, as I said, I am now of an age where if I see some injustice, I'm going to call it out. Again, a lot of women who are my age now, we all kind of feel the same. We are not in a position where we need to fear our peers, as in we're more confident in who we are. We've had more life experience. We've been on the planet a little bit longer to actually know our own minds a little better. We've made mistakes. We've had triumphs. All of these things, and we have a bit more knowledge. And we also, have a better grip of what's going on. When I think back to when I was 20, or around that age in my late teens, when I thought I knew everything. A very common cliche to say, you realise the difference. There's 20 years in that time, and the amount of life experience, the things that have happened to me, have shaped who I am. They haven't changed the core of who I am, but they've shaped the way I view the world, and I've learned things, and I've changed my mind on things because I've learned new information. One of those things, for me, was gender. I didn't understand the science behind male, female sex, intersex, and the gender spectrum. I had a conversation with someone who was patient with me and explained the science, and I was like, oh, right, okay, yeah, that makes sense now. And of course, from that moment on, I became a trans ally. Why wouldn't I be? Because it's part of the natural human condition. But I was able to be in a safe place to have the conversation, to say, well, no, it's not like that, is it? And somebody go, well, actually, you're wrong. It's like this. And it was explained to me in a safe place. I felt safe. I felt I could say, oh, I didn't realise how wrong I'd been getting it all this time. Didn't understand that my knowledge of science and biology only went this far, where actually there's so much more to learn. And so I made it my responsibility to make sure that I had the information. I didn't go to a trans person and get them to tell me about it. I did my own research, found out about it, and was like, right, okay, so now I'm better educated. And I will say this to anyone about anything. If you have the information, you're better educated, come and tell me, because that's it. When we talk from a place of opinion, we are talking about our lived experience, and everybody has a different level of lived experience. So yeah, we're all just trying to muddle through, shuffle from cradle to grave, from the cottage to granny's house, as we were talking about last week, trying to find our own path through the woods. And yeah, you are going to meet people on this road who have more information than you, and that is okay. It's okay to learn new things, because if we stopped learning things at 20, at 30, 40, at 60, we would stifle, and we would end up with the situation that you do see in some parts of the world. In fact, in some parts of this country, where you find that you have a lot of old people, or older generation people, who are very fixed in their ways, don't understand that humans evolve, that society evolves and changes, that people's opinions and lived experiences are different based on our culture, our technology, and the effects of politics. And so their lived experience becomes different. And so the world needs to change because of that. And the older generation, the ones who have the power, first of all, they don't want to get rid of the power. They don't want to relinquish that power. And they definitely don't want to give it to young people who, from their point of view, is, well, I didn't know anything when I was that age. How can they know anything? But yes, they don't have the life experience, but they should still be listened to. Their voices should be heard. Again, finding a safe space to speak authentically, to say the things that are on your mind and be heard, be listened to. It's a reason why so many people stay silent. They are silenced. Again, it's not safe for them to speak up about their identity, about who they are, about who they love. It's not safe for them to speak up about their lived experiences of discrimination. It's not safe for them perhaps to voice an opinion in their workspace, because they fear that they will be sacked if they make a fuss, and obviously they depend on that financial status. There's lots of reasons why people stay silent. But artists who have nothing to fear from the status quo, because we live outside of this anyway, we have a perfect opportunity to reflect what's happening in society back to the people and say, hey, here's a mirror. And you see what's going on? And perhaps present it in a way that is a little bit more metaphorical, a little more symbolic, that will hopefully connect on many levels, on a universal level, with anyone who views it. They will feel something. And that's what art does. It makes you feel something. And that feeling is a language without words that every human has the capacity to feel. They can look at a painting. They can hear a piece of music. They can feel that emotion that is being conveyed, whether that emotion may be injustice or joy or love or grief or sorrow or any of the other myriad emotions. They get to feel what that is, and therefore through feeling have empathy for other human beings. And that's really the artist's job, if you like. Yes, my job might be, I make music, I write books, I write poetry, I paint things, etc., etc. You know, I practice my spirituality, and I teach what I can. I pass it on. That might be how I do my job. But my job, why I do my job, is because it's important that people feel, if they are going to feel empathy for other human beings. And that's really kind of important, because without empathy, those walls of division just get higher and higher and thicker until nobody's voices can be heard. So it's important for artists to speak their truth, and to speak truth for those who don't have voices, to speak and create spaces. It's a privilege to have a platform in which to speak freely like this. I hear so many arguments about freedom of speech and how we're being silenced in this country. In this country, we're not. Our freedom of speech is wonderful in this country, even better than it is in America. And that's supposedly the leaders of the free world, but don't get me started on that. So we do. Freedom of speech is the freedom to say, to come onto a public channel like this and say whatever my opinion is. Now, I'm not saying that's not without consequences, because of course there'll be some people who will listen to this who know me from down the pub and, oh, she's quite right, she's a laugh, oh, she's all political and progressive, oh no, I don't want to get into that conversation. And I might lose some friends. Were they really my friends if they didn't know me? That's something that it's a dice that we have to roll. It's a risk that we that we have to take. But quite frankly, I'm now in a place where I'm willing to roll that dice and take that risk, because I truly believe that if you do know me, and you do know where I'm coming from, and what my reasons, my motivation behind why I do what I do, and why I say the things that I say, if you know more about me, then you'll understand me more. Understand me more, you'll have more empathy with me. And through empathy, I can hopefully make you feel empathy for others. It's scary. It's scary to stand up and speak your truth in front of people, because, yeah, people criticize and they judge, and like I say, they may switch off this video. It might be like, oh, this is not for me, I don't have the brain space to think about it. And okay, you know, not everybody has the space to think about it all the time. Doesn't mean that they can't visit some of these concepts at another time. Some people are closed off, and as I said at the beginning, their fear say, oh no, that's too different, it's too different, it's a threat. It's a threat to the status quo. It's a threat to who I thought I was and my identity. And that fear keeps them from learning, and keeps them in the same place. And I think that's all about just finding your tribe. And that's kind of the journey that I'm on now. I'm finding my tribe. So I'm kind of putting my message out there and saying, okay, everyone, is this something that you share? Is this, are these ideals and principles something that resonate with you? Come and talk to me. You know, come and have a conversation. Let's begin. You know, let's begin talking through some of this stuff, and hopefully trying to make some change before there's no planet left. yeah, it's scary to do that. Although I must say that the most, excuse me, the best performances that I've had as a musician are the ones where I have been vulnerable or showed my vulnerability, where I've been in the moment and I've given everything to that performance. And by doing that, by showing that vulnerability and and opening myself up, I've been able to connect with my audience in a way that I wouldn't have been able to do if I'd have just sort of gone up to the microphone and just sung all the notes in a very technical way. If I hadn't have expressed that emotion, even to the point where, yeah, it may not be technically perfect, I may get a crack in my voice or because of the emotion, or I may breathe in the wrong place because of the emotion. And those of you who have come up to me after a show and admitted that they've cried, and a couple of people have, I'm very flattered that I was able to move you that way. Okay, I'm not. Yeah, I made you cry. I'm sorry about that. But at least it was a happy cry. It was an emotional cry. I made you feel something. And that's important. So that's what I'm going to continue to do. I'm going to continue writing my stories, creating art in all the ways I know how, make you feel something. Because through that feeling, we can create empathy. And empathy for one another, and hopefully the whole world. And then by extension, hopefully the planet. As I said before, there is no planet left. I feel that we have a responsibility, really, as artists, to do this. People often get so shut into their lives. They are told to stay in their lane. They are told to stay on the path. They are told that bad things happen if you step off the path. Meanwhile, the artists are all hanging out in the woods like, hey, come over here. There's fun things going on that are not scary at all. But the lessons that are told to the masses are, don't listen to the artists. You won't be provided for. You can't make a living as an artist. It's not a proper job. And again, it's that fear. There's nothing the patriarchy fears more than a shape-shifting woman. Yeah, a woman who cannot be controlled, a woman who will speak her mind. Even more so perhaps than a shape-shifting man. I don't know, that's something to explore, isn't it? The way that a woman would be feared more than a man would be feared. A man may be celebrated by the patriarchy for being shape-shifting and being able to change his stripes often. That's an interesting conversation. Yes. If you have any ideas or thoughts on that, drop me a line in the comment whether you think that that just by definition of being a woman, it makes you more scary to the establishment, because there's less room for women to have voices. Again, something I'm very passionate about, giving women voices. The witch wound. I think this, I don't know if you've heard this phrase, it's something that I've come across in the recent months. The witch wound is that women carry this wound with them, that if they speak up, they speak out, they'll be accused of witchcraft. Which, okay, it's not quite so much witchcraft in the 21st century, but it stems from that, and that's where the phrase was coined. What do you say, Gig? Gig's saying, too true. Vulnerability is too often seen as a negative, when in actual fact, it's so bloody powerful and empowering. I couldn't agree more with you, Gig. Yeah, that being vulnerable is, and it's scary. I mean, right now, I'm feeling the fear because I'm not sure how this is going to be received. But do you know what? I'd rather roll that dice. And yes, people may point their finger at me and go, witch, but do you know what? Too late. We know that. I am a witch. So you can't hold that against me. Which finally, why I think we are seeing more women speak out and take their life experiences and put them on, on a public forum and say, no, actually, the only way to do things is not this preset masculine way of doing things. There's actually another way of doing things that's actually more beneficial for women to do it that way. Why do we have to do it this way? Again, lots and lots to unpack. But yes, this witch wound, the idea that we will be cast out, we'll have our lands taken from us. Mainly, I think this came down to the fact that women outlive men, generally speaking. And of course, centuries ago, when we were in much more of a rural society, women did outlive their men. And men were kind of prone to sort of like accidents, so they're outside more, doing a lot more physical labour, perhaps, or more kind of dangerous work. We can address that too. But the women were outlived, and of course they inherited the property. So you ended up with a lot of old ladies with their own homes. They were property owners, so therefore they had a stake in what was, what happened in their village, in their communities, in their towns. They had, a vote, well, not a vote, but as a landowner, they had, also they should have had a say in what was going on, the same as the male landowners, but that wasn't allowed. So we see these patterns just repeating themselves, and we end up with women of a certain age wanting to say stuff, wanting to actually say, well, actually, I have qualifications in this area, I have experience in this area, or I have a lived experience of something that has physically happened to me, and this is how I dealt with it, and this information is helpful. But you go, no, shh, you're just an old woman, you're crazy. You're too old. You don't fit our beauty standards, so we're not going to listen to you. We don't give you any credit because you don't fit into this box of women that we listen to. We basically listen to women that we can sexualize, objectify, or control. And if you don't fit into those boxes, then you become scary, because you can't be controlled. And here we go, talking about what we were saying last week about stepping off the path. But I think we have a responsibility, really, as artists, as women, but more as creatives, to speak that truth, a responsibility to all of our predecessors, those people who didn't have voices, from the men and women and children who were executed for witchcraft over centuries, definitely all over Europe, all over the world, even in the New World, and just everywhere. And there's still cases today where very religious communities will point the finger at somebody whose behaviour or opinions appear to be outside of what is considered appropriate or what is considered acceptable within their community. And they will, regardless of that religion, it doesn't matter. If it's seen as being outside of it, it will be ostracized, it will be pointed out, even so much that creativity itself is seen as being the work of evil influences in some cultures, or in some communities. But there's a deeper thing that connects us with art and creativity. There's this connection to source. As I was saying, for artists to be able to hold up a mirror and say, can you not see how the world really is, to pull that veil from people's eyes. There has to be a connection to something larger than just the pencil on the paper or the brush on the easel, or the fingers on the piano, the voice on the note, whatever it is that medium is that you are channeling your art through. It's coming from somewhere. And yes, part that is a culmination of who the artist is as a human, their own culture, their own lived experiences. But there's something else. It's being able to tap into something larger than themselves, a source, a spirit, a divinity, however you want to describe it, the universe, cosmic power, physics, magic, whatever you want to call it. There is something. We often say the magic moment, because emotions can't be seen or touched, or but they can be felt. We know that they're there, and they transfer from one person to another via empathy, and via this projection of art. We can make other people feel what we are feeling. Now there's some magic in that. Just because we can't see it, yeah, we can explain it and say, yeah, a big old explosion of hormones and goes off in the brain and releases all these chemicals into your body, and that's how you feel emotions. That's what your meat suit does. But how do you feel those emotions? What makes the choice for you to feel that? Well, it's your response to what's going on around you. Your senses, whether they are sight or hearing or touch or smell or taste or something other than that, they respond to something that's going on, and they make you feel. And that's really important. There's something really special about that. And good things can happen when those with sort of common goals, with common purpose, get together. And this is what I'm trying to cultivate right here. People with these same ideas. I want to know. I want to know indeed. So, what is it that I stand for? What is it that I'm saying? Who is the truth and the vulnerability of me? Well, I want to tell the stories of those who have been silenced, whether that's human rights, marginalised people, women, trans people, black people. I want to hear their voices, lift their voices, give them a platform. Here I have a platform, come and use it. I'm not going to speak for them. It's not my lived experience, but I'll create a space for them to tell their stories. And the larger stories, the ones that I do tell, I will tell them through folk tales, through music, through the art that I create. I will try and resonate those feelings, that lived experience of somebody else, of a different time or of a different place, and put it through my art. That's why I do what I do. That's what brings me the most joy as a creative person. That's what I'm interested in. Also, I want to invest in a culture of spiritual creativity. I'm pagan. I'm a practicing witch. I practice a shamanic tradition. I work with fire and dragon energy, which is dragon lines, ley lines, the power of nature itself, the turning of the seasons, the magic of physics, if you like. I do have quite a scientific approach to it in some ways, because we are humans experiencing it, and we don't necessarily need to explain it always to find joy or beauty in something. I have to say, we know how a flower photosynthesizes the sun. Doesn't stop the flower from being beautiful to behold. So you've got to be able to mix these two. And as I've said before, I am interested in that apex of where culture, creativity and spirituality meet. How by having a creative community, a spiritual and creative community can build culture, can build cultural ideas that hopefully can permeate out into a wider community and say, look, these things work. This is a good way to live. These are good ideals to follow. These are harmonious and helpful and kind and good for our planet. So that culture of spiritual creativity, that's something that I definitely want to invest in, and that'll be definitely something that we will speak about very often. And finally, what I do want to say about authenticity and particularly vulnerability is I don't want to hide my light under a bushel anymore. It's a phrase that I use quite often, because it's how I've felt most of my life. I am, let's see, yeah, I'm hyperactive. It looks like I'm about to be diagnosed with ADHD. So those of you who know me, I am like, yeah, I can be a bit wired sometimes. I can be talkative, but I can also be very quiet and very withdrawn. Because of the experiences I've had, I was incredibly bullied as a child because I was too awkward for the kids who were my peers. So much of that continued right into secondary school, where I was physically assaulted and beaten to a pulp, which resulted in me having seizures for years and years and years. All of these things were things that told me that being myself didn't have a happy ending. Every time I was myself, something bad happened. So I boxed it. I pushed it down. And the only time that it was permitted for me to be myself was for me to be on stage. That was the only time that it was seen that, yeah, this is okay. You're allowed to go and be as crazy as you like up there, but you have to act quiet. Don't embarrass us. Stay quiet. Stay small. Stay quiet. And so for me, being vulnerable like this is like saying to people, I know I'm awkward. I know I might say daft stuff. I know I might, be a bit crazy, but I'm doing my best to not hide that part of myself anymore, to not be restricted in the same way. And that kind of goes for my creativity. I love to perform and I love to sing, but I had so many hang-ups about being told that I was a show-off or I was attention seeker, just because I like to stand up there and share my voice with people. And it's like, well, it's not my fault that I'm good at it, and that's something now that I want to do. I want to embrace and celebrate the things that I do because I enjoy it. And also, if I can share my experiences and they can help other people. And we do have an episode scheduled for the new year where I'm going to talk about mental health, and my mental health journey. And so, yes, if you have any comments that you want to, if you want to participate, or if you have any stories to share about that, then yeah, drop it in the comments or drop me a DM. We're going to talk about mental health. There will be definitely a content warning on that episode because we'll be talking about issues such as assault of various kinds and some more sort of sensitive subjects surrounding mental health and some of the effects that it can have on people's well-being. So please get involved if you are interested in joining that conversation. But yeah, if any of the stories that I have can help somebody else, it's time for me to tell those stories. And lastly, the other part of not hiding my light, if you like, I'm not going to stay quiet. When I see injustice or inequality, I'm going to call it out. If I see somebody being a knob, I'm going to call it out. And if I see somebody else calling out someone else, I'm going to back them up. Because we need to stand shoulder to shoulder. We don't need to jump in and defend somebody if they're capable of holding their own ground. We don't need to. And I think possibly as men, you don't want to jump in front of a woman who is holding her own, because it negates her argument. It's saying that she needs a man to protect her. But if you stand shoulder to shoulder and be a good ally, that can help so much more by allowing her voice to be heard. So, yeah, lots and lots of things to think about. So, if these are some principles that you share that we've talked about this evening, this is the right space for you. If it's not, and you think I'm whittering on a whole load of balderdash, that's fine. Just turn it off. Don't care. I'm looking for my tribe. So if you're my tribe and you're out there, spread the word. This is what we're doing now. We are using our art to speak our truth and create a culture of spiritual creativity. So why don't you join me for the ride? I'm excited. I hope you are too. Thanks for those who have joined along. Before we do go, last week we were talking about stepping off the path, a bit of an introduction to what Wild Night is all about. We were talking about Red Riding Hood, which for me obviously is a massive thing. In fact, so much so that you will probably know that my album Forever Wild is kind of based around these stories, and next week we will be filming a music video. It's very exciting. I'm very excited. We're going to be working with Jay Hillier again, and my good friend and gigging buddy Martin Jackson will be on hand. We will be recording the title track. Lots of exciting stuff. So in the next upcoming weeks, we will have some behind the scenes teasers for you. Next week, however, I am at a conference in Brighton. I will be performing live for the first time in 18 months since the beginning of lockdown at the Creatrix Rising event. I'm very excited to be able to be there with all of these wonderful, powerful, creative women, and share my stories and share my music. I'm so excited. So if you have your ticket for Creative Rising, yeah, I will see you there. If you don't, what are you waiting for? Yeah, if you are a creative woman who is a business owner, that's who the conference is for. So if you are interested in that, go and check out Ali Mapletoft or the Creatrix Club for Creative Women. Yeah, I'm so excited about that. So I will be there next Friday evening. I'm not entirely sure what the itinerary is for that, but I will be going live at 8 o'clock wherever I am and what I'm doing. So hopefully I'm going to see if there's some of the other delegates there, some of the other ladies that are there, whether they want to jump on, have a bit of a conversation. That would be amazing. Or whether it's all finished and we're all tight and I'm back in the hotel room. And, either way, I hope to be going live throughout the day. Obviously within breaks and things like that. So make sure that you're following my Instagram, because that's where I will be going live. And that's on my Keep Me Forever Wild Instagram. I know I have two. I will share the stories afterwards, but I will be using the Forever Wild as this is where I'm going live throughout the day. So make sure you're following that if you want to see what we're doing. And yeah, I'm so excited to be going to this event. And I'm actually travelling. I'm going to be going on a train and everything. It's just almost feels like the world is back to normal. So the very last thing before we go, I do want to remind you that I have just released a limited edition print of Into the Woods. Here we are. Make sure the light doesn't shine on it quite so much. There we go. Can you see? Oh, it's still shining on it. There we go. My camera's backwards, so I'm having to do things like not mirrored. There we go. Can you see? So here we have it's beautiful paper stock. It's all FSC, sustainably sourced and recycled by Printworks in Leeds. This piece of digital art obviously represents Red taking those first few steps into the wild, and time for her to create her own path, basically, which is what we're all doing here with this. So if you are interested in having one of these limited edition prints, go over to my website esmeknight.com, go through to the shop tab, and you'll find them under art prints. I will leave the link to it in the comments. But yes, if you're interested in picking up a print, a good reminder that we all need to stay wild, basically. Yeah. So treat yourself or a loved one for the festivities that are approaching. Yeah, so that's about all it is for me this week. As I say, next week I will be live from Brighton. I'm not quite sure what that's going to look like yet, because I'm not quite sure what the day is going to entail. But yes, follow me on Keep Me Forever Wild Instagram, and I'm sure I will keep you updated with everything that is going on. Right, that's all from me this evening. I hope you all have a wonderful, wonderful evening, and until next time, stay wild.